There's a moment in healing where everything starts to make sense. Your patterns, your wounds, your triggers, and then nothing changes. And that's the moment where most people stop. But hey, that's why we're here. This is the new Ashla podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla podcast. Today we're diving into one of the greatest dilemmas in the healing community, and I think this is where most people wind up. You know, it starts to become obvious all the reasons we are the way we are. We start doing we realize why we do the things we do, and we begin to see how other people work. It starts to be this magical understanding. But then, all of a sudden, all this awareness equates to no change in our lives. We begin to feel miserable, we begin to feel depressed, we begin to be haunted by these realizations of life, wondering, even though I understand this, why am I not changing? So I thought this would be a great episode to dive into, to really start getting into how insight does not equal change in our lives.
Yeah, right. The whole self-help trap, right? That's what we're talking about today. It's happened to every single one of us. Every one of us who were or are, the self-help junkies, right? It's very seductive. It's a moment where you go, aha, eureka, I get it now. I get it. You recognize the pattern. You trace the wound. You've become the Batman of healing. You're the greatest detective, the world's greatest detective now. You understand the trauma. You even know how to label and call out the pattern, right? And the attachment style and the origin story. And with all that understanding comes this wave of relief, and your tension fades away a little bit, and you're not quite as confused anymore. It starts to settle. And then, and this chaos, this outside stuff and this inside stuff suddenly has a name. You can call it something. And for a lot of people, man, myself included, and I know for you too, that relief, that sigh, I'm healed. But the problem is that insight, although important, is not integration.
It's an illusion.
If you stop there, it is, yeah.
Yep.
It's very seductive. It does reduce the confusion, which is kind of a big hurdle to jump. But you're halfway there. And we're not talking crap about any self-help stuff. I think they have value. I still read the same kind of books. I've even written one, or two. So, but, and insight does kind of shine that light that we talk about, that light of truth on what was obscured or what we were hiding from. And it explains why you react the way you do, why certain things trigger you, and why you learn the strategies that you learn to survive. That's all very important stuff. The understanding is valuable. It matters. It's like I said, but you're only halfway there, because it does not by itself change the conditioning that still lives in our body. Body remembers.
Well, I'd even say, like, for me, I don't think this is something that just, once you realize how to overcome the hurdle of awareness and starting to take action, I think this is a perpetual cycle we all get into, because we keep having realizations, and then we end up sort of deviating from the action plan necessary to integrate those changes. And this is just something that happens throughout the healing journey.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I was so into self-help when I first got into this whole scene, but it was all reading book after book after book with no real change in my life.
Yeah. We have an axiom that kind of touches upon this. And this axiom is very, very broad, but release what you think you know, for fixed ideals and a hardened mind are poison. Let go of judgment and remain open and accepting to all possibilities. That's the part that we stop at, right? We learn, we know, I know why I flinch, but that doesn't stop the flinch, does it?
No.
I know where the fear comes from, but that doesn't automatically calm the fear. Knowing the story does not help rewrite it. It doesn't rewrite the reflex, the reaction. And this is where much of these self-help quietly fails us. It overemphasizes awareness and underemphasizes embodiment. That's why on this show, we are always quick to say, here's the insight, here's how you practice it. Get to work, right? That's why we do that. Because we can help people gain insight, and we do. And we can help them feel that rush of relief and then, but if we don't show them the practicality of it, if we don't give them things to do with that insight, right?
Yep.
Then all we're doing is helping them unconsciously assume that the work is done. And then what happens? Life comes and happens.
Yep.
There'll never be a shortage of chaos. There'll never be a shortage of outside things and inside things if we don't learn to integrate them. So, because those same reactions are going to show up, the same deep patterns are going to repeat, but this stuff kind of returns in a new form, right? It's like, but I understand this now. Why hasn't anything changed? And the problem isn't you. The problem is the assumption that you made, right?
Yeah. Well, that and it's well, it's like, man, we talk about the unconscious mind being 95% of our thoughts, right? The unconscious mind is heavily associated with the nervous system. Mm-hmm. And the nervous system doesn't just retrain itself. No. We talk about perpetual cycles, and yeah, things will come right back into your life, mm-hmm. and they will trigger you the exact same way, awareness or not. You will go to your base level of healing, and life will humble you.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I first started, and I was reading book after book after book, and it's like, okay, I understand how I work now. I got this. And I got my first confrontation, and bam, freeze response.
Yeah.
I remember realizing the freeze response was activating, and I'm trying so hard to stop my brain from shutting down and trying to calm my nervous system. And it was excruciating, to say the least, because it was like I was watching a car accident from the outside, being unable to stop it.
Right. You know, like the 80s and 90s, of course, a lot of self-help stuff really flooded back in those days, right? And self-help is still pretty strong niche in books. But now those books are now seminars and coaching courses and all this stuff. But also at that time, there were like these rush of these karate books, right? Did you remember ever seeing those? Like,
no.
Okay, so back then, when I was a kid, there was tons of these karate books. And they would show you the moves. They'd be like, do like this, do like that, you block like this, right? And it would show you step by step, like there's 1,001 pictures in these books, and they show you. And here's this big, tough karate master, but it would be like, what we're trying to say today is like, if I would pick up one of those karate books and just study the moves and know the steps, but never practice them, right?
Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about today. You have to, as Michael likes to say, you have to take action. You have to do. It's important to know. Practice. Now, the problem is not the person, it's the assumption, as I said. And understanding helps us explain to ourselves the behavior, but as you said, it doesn't retrain our body, which is very important, you know? And conditioning, this kind of conditioning that we're talking about, is not dismantled simply by knowing it, by seeing it, by insight. It's reshaped through those tiny little habits, through repetition and regulation and discipline and lived practice over time. Don't take anything that I'm saying as a failure of your intelligence or even your sincerity. This is just simply how us human beings work. This is how we're wired, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, we crave understanding, we crave control, we crave certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And this information gives us this small semblance of, I can now control this thing that has been impacting my life my whole life.
Yeah.
And again, when things pop up, integration takes time and effort. Like I was describing that car crash. It took going through that over and over again. And I'm still working through it. I still have it come on. But I've gotten better at regulating my nervous system. I've gotten better about calming my mind down in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
But it took constant exposure.
We're going to be doing a show later this month about, you can't build a new life with an old self, right? And we're really going to dig into parts of what we're talking about today. But if insight were just enough, everyone who's ever had an epiphany would be transformed instantly, miraculously, right? But our path, the path of Ashla, has always taught me something, and this is what I teach you, something a little more demanding and a lot more honest. Light is not realized through just knowing alone. It's realized through living differently. Ignorance yet knowledge. But the lines of the code don't stop there, right? It just doesn't stop there. Ignorance is a doorway to wisdom, but wisdom is not found through knowing alone. It is through doing and experiencing, good or bad, success or failure, it doesn't matter. Insight really opens this door that we're talking about. Integration is when we walk through it. And this is why it's so seductive, though, because it takes us a long time. And it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears just to find the door sometimes. And once we get there, man, it's like, oh, I did it. I finally did it. I now know what this is. But that's why it's so seductive, because it feels so good to finally find that door, to finally find that beginning of that path. But understand, it's the beginning of the path. The door is just the beginning now. And we must be prepared to spend the rest of our lives practicing.
Yeah. You know, it's like one of my favorite phrases. It is 20% awareness, it is 80% action.
Yeah.
Because awareness is a beautiful thing, but going through that door, it'll bring out the things you bury deep. You will feel it in your bones.
Yeah. 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 Down to the marrow. Right to the marrow, right? And listen, most self-help, good self-help, even the best ones, they don't fail us because they lack insight, but because we allow ourselves to be convinced that the insight is the destination. Again, that's just the beginning of the path from there. That's why when I teach students, when I taught you, we spent a lot of time finding the trailhead, did we not, to the path?
Yep.
Right? We spent a lot of time finding the trailhead, because it's like we spend all this time driving to the path, and then we get there and it's like, okay, here's the path, and you're like, what? We just did all.
What do you mean?
Yeah, we did all this stuff, good. And now I get to walk. Now I have to start walking the path. Yes, yeah, right. Because getting there is half the battle. The other half is actually walking it at that point. So why are we so easily tricked by this? Why does insight feel like healing, or like that we're healed almost?
Well, I think just that, like you said earlier, that feeling we get when we gain that awareness, that realization, all of a sudden everything makes sense. And again, it gives us that semblance of control.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I first started down the healing path, and it's like I started talking about what I was going through, and I thought talking about your problems was a good way to go through what you went through. Mm-hmm. And I still believe that. I think talking in groups, having someone to confide in, these are important things.
Yeah.
But often, talking about pain is easier than feeling it.
Yeah.
And that's where people really get hung up, is they try to avoid the feeling aspect.
Yeah.
It's, okay, now that I understand this, I'm going to be fine. But the minute it gets uncomfortable, I think that's one of the toxic sectors in the healing communities nowadays, is like, just cut people out of your life. Just no bad energy here. And it's like, no, you're just avoiding hard conversations and truths.
And the care provider is just avoiding having you go through that. But it's necessary. It's necessary, man. Listen, as a mentor, as a teacher, it's my job to rig you up with a really nice harness, but I'm lowering you down into the abyss. You have to go down there. I have to establish that trust with you that I'm going to hold the rope. I'm here with you, but I'm up top lowering you down into the abyss as far as you're ready to go. Right? And that's a lot of, and I shouldn't say this like this, but I don't know how else to say it. But a lot of care providers across the spectrum, from those who are coaches, teachers, mentors, all the way up to professional counselors and professional therapists, I don't see that a lot of them are willing to put their people down into the abyss. I think they're scared for them, and maybe that comes from a place of love and care, right? But you have to go down there. I'm sorry. I got your back, though. I'm a strong guy. I got your back. I'll hold the rope, right? If you fall, it's because I fell. But I got the rope. I got you, bro. but I have to let you go down in the hole. And I can't go with you. I just can't, because I have to hold the rope for you. And that's really going back to sitting in the mud with people, right? But you nailed it. It restores a sense of control. This why it feels like we're healing. And we are on the path to healing at this point, because that's part of it. But because you feel like you're no longer lost inside this experience of healing, right? You almost feel like you're standing above it, observing it. You're like, wow, this distance really feels like progress. And in a lot of ways, it is some progress, but it's not the kind of progress that we need, right?
Yeah. Integration can only live in behavior and regulation. We're not able to confront our demons. Again, this is why we go through the process of lowering the rope, because you have to learn to fight the battles yourself.
Right.
We'll have your back. We'll step in if needed, but it is your responsibility to train your nervous system, to learn how to regulate yourself in times of conflict, in times of stress.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. We talk about it like it's just this grand thing that, you get to overcome as soon as you start doing this. No. Time and practice. It takes so much of it, but it's worth it. But that's true integration.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, 5% of our minds, right? 5% of our minds is conscious. That's where awareness is. The other 95%, that's where integration needs to be.
Yes, right. I've said before on this podcast where, sometimes it breaks my heart as a mentor, as a teacher, to see my students go through things. And I'm going to let you fight it out with yourself. I'm not going to let you die, right? I'm going to protect you, but I am going to let you be uncomfortable. I am going to let you go through these things, even though I want to just tap your third eye and make you whole.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So
law of confusion, right?
Law of confusion. I
think about one of my clients who I saw them struggling so much, and it's like, I could give you the answers you want me to tell you, but I know that this is something, if you don't learn for yourself, you're not going to understand the lesson within this.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing we do that some people might confuse for laziness is self-protection. Because insight, this grand insight that we get, this aha, this epiphany we have, we will substitute that for discomfort. Instead of sitting with the sensations, the urge, the fear, or the impulse to run or fight or whatever, the mind will explain it. It's all good, bro. It'll label it. It'll even contextualize it, right? And in doing so, it makes us want to avoid that deeper work of going down in the abyss. So, because that's how our bodies are going to learn. That's how the nervous system is going to learn, is by doing. And not just doing once, over and over and over again. Practice, practice, practice. And this isn't a lack of discipline. This isn't a lack of desire, as I said earlier. It just feels safer than the actual integration.
It's like trained into your body.
And it's boring. And it sucks. Right? It requires this repetition without the novelty of it. Finding it is like, oh, I get it. That's fun. That's awesome. That's novel. Like, wow, I feel empowered. But you got to do it over and over and over and over again, and it gets really old after a while. It feels like that way anyway.
Yeah.
It requires some discomfort without any drama. It requires that patience when the mind wants answers, resolution, right now. Fix me, fix me, fix me. Got to be patient, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I think this is one of the big places people really get hung up in the healing community is they gain this awareness, they dip their toes in the water, they realize it's still freezing even though they now understand that the water's cold.
Right.
And they pull away, and then they don't know what to do because all of a sudden it's like, I have all this insight, but I still feel cold.
I know I need to go into the water. I'm not doing it, though, because it sucks.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck, man. And there's really two questions that insight and integration ask us at this point. Insight says, I understand why this happens, but integration will ask of us, can you stay present when it happens again? And again, and again, and again, and again, because it will. And self-help often fails here because it rewards understanding with relief, but does not prepare us for the slower, more boring, quieter, and more demanding work that follows. As you keep digging, you're going to dig up some more things. And without guidance beyond the insight, and this is really where self-help has its issue. You have guidance up to the insight, but you don't have any guidance beyond that unless there's a follow-up, but most of the self-help stuff doesn't have much follow-up because a lot of these authors and coaches or whatever, they just go from one thing to another, just bang through it. Totally a bunch of different things, which is why, we're not anywhere near ready to put this out there yet, but we are actually building a platform on school that will take the insight and put it into practice for you so that you can completely look at a topic like today's show and not only understand what we're talking about, find awareness for it, label it, call it out, be ready to practice, right? And that's where most self-help fails us because that's why I love podcasts like this, other podcasts that are like this. I like those better nowadays than the 50 books on my bookshelf because there's the insight and then you can keep listening and you can find practices and they'll revisit things like we do a lot too. We revisit topics from a slightly different angle in case you didn't see it here or didn't understand the practice here. We can turn the camera, as it were, and look at it from this angle. It's the same. We're talking about the same things. We're just trying to find different inroads to them, right? And that's where it fails us, though, because there's no follow-up, no good follow-up. That's why having a teacher or having a mentor or having a good core group is really important because they will help us with that follow-up if they're good. So,
well, and that's really also one of the great things with the Path of Ashla and the things we're building right now. I mean, again, like you said it best, many of these coaching platforms are all about let's get you through the different courses and just move you on your way. And with this path, challenges you to do is to take your time on each lesson. If you need a month to understand this topic, a year, take the time you need. We'll give you the exercises and the tools you need to integrate this into your life.
Yeah. And we're going to show you how to do it as many times as we need to. You can always revisit everything we do, right?
Yep.
And we're going to hold the rope for you. But you're going down in that damn hole. We'll hold the rope.
Yep.
You're going in that hole, or else you're not going to integrate. You're going to only be halfway there.
It's not an easy path for sure.
No. Life is a hard path, life itself. But it gets easier if you learn how to integrate these things. And we have a lot of powerful shows coming up this month. I am so excited about the shows that we have lined up this coming month because they're really going to hit hard. And, you're probably going to tick off a few self-help authors with this one, which is okay. But maybe they can take the advice and you write a book. I'm talking to you self-help authors right there, right now. Look at me. You write a book about A, and then you do 2 follow-up books to make sure. The next follow-up book is practicing the stuff that you taught, and the third one may be helping people hold themselves accountable to it. Right, Michael? That's what we need to do. Yeah. But so what is integration? We keep saying that word. We keep kind of dancing around it. What is it? What does it actually mean?
I love a word you just used because I think it's a great one. It's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
It is the willingness to go into that fire and act differently than you have acted before. And again, it is not going to be, I have the awareness, now I can handle this with ease. You are going to react the same way you always have. Mm-hmm. But with the awareness, you will have that seed, that voice in the back of your head telling you, hey, this is your pattern being triggered right now. Some examples is like knowing when you learn your attachment style. It's responding differently when you get activated in your relationships, whether you're clinging too much to your partner or you're pushing them away.
Yeah. Or
understanding your trauma versus staying present in conflict. Or one of my favorite ones, you can name your boundaries, but being able to hold them when it costs you. And again, I'm not saying this is a light switch transition. This is something that takes diligence and practice. But without that, you will never integrate.
For our world's greatest detectives out there, you're going to see a light all of a sudden because I forgot to turn my light on today. I was wondering why it wasn't burning my face today. Yeah, I was kind of lurking in the shadows there.
I was wondering where you went.
I have a different word that I think is just as important as accountability. It's
Okay.
embodiment.
Yes.
Integration is the embodiment of the insight that we have found.
Is that
Integration,
integration or being integrated?
integrated, both, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because integration is not something that we think about. We can plan for it, we can dream about it, we can visualize ourselves having done it, but it's not something, that stuff it's not gonna cover it, right?
Right.
It's something that shows up in your body, in your choices, in your reactions, especially when you're under stress, when you're confronted, when these triggers come up, as you said. This is where you're going to see it. You're going to embody these ideas. It's going to be a part of your being, your whole being, mind, body, heart, and spirit. That's what integration means. Working to find that wholeness, that integrity, right? And it shows up in your wisdom. That's where it shows up too. Let's make it simple. Integration is when insight changes how you respond when it actually matters. Let's just call it that, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it.
Insight lives here. Where does integration live, Michael?
In here.
Everywhere else. In your body. In your body. And everything will follow suit as you train the what does my mom call it? The little man. My mom calls the subconscious the little man.
Little man in your head.
The little man. And he's got these big filing cabinets, and everything you do and everything you say and whatever goes in these filing cabinets, and he's old school. He doesn't use a computer, so he's got to run back and forth and pull these files out, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we're slow to change. That's why we're slow to adapt sometimes to this change that actually transforms our life. We just got to think of it like this. We have to start integrating new ways of doing things. So we got to get the little man a damn computer and teach him how to use, right? Teach him how to use, at least teach him how to use Microsoft Access or something so that these things can start becoming easier. And they will.
Well, and often with that little man in your head, I mean, often when we divide into these parts, which is what happens, these triggers, these things that kick on, we got to be able to understand these parts, both what is activated, but also what it's protecting.
So, look, here's where you can see the difference. There's another way you can see the difference. Insight, it will pop up, and it'll happen in your conversations, when you're reflecting, when you're journaling. Integration happens the moment you're triggered, you're stressed, you're pressured, or afraid. And most often you'll see it again, like I said, it happens when there's something at stake, right? Not necessarily life or death, but when something is on the line. So look, you can know your attachment style. We talk about that. We talked about that in different episodes. You can know what your attachment style is, Michael, and still panic when someone pulls away, right?
Yeah.
You can know it, but still, right?
Guilty.
Exactly. Well, I was just going to say, when you and I first met for years and years, we would sit around and talk about all these self-help concepts. We would talk about this stuff, but we never would put it into practice until later, right? Until you were ready to integrate.
Well, and I think the threshold I was at.
I was just going to say, I was just going to say real quick, you are a literal walking, breathing example of what we're talking about today.
Well, and it's like back in the day, people get hung up on this, is I thought insight was all I needed. And it wasn't a matter of thinking I needed to integrate it. It's like I have this knowledge, and I would convince myself I will do it when the time is right.
Right.
The moment will be available to me. I never thought of it as something that needed to be conditioned into me, or better said, the old had to be conditioned out.
Right.
To me, it was like, now that I have this awareness, practice what it's talking about. That wasn't a concept to me.
Right.
Yeah, it was just, now that I have the knowledge, I should be doing better.
Right. And then you create shame and you create more issues.
Yeah.
You can look, to your point, you can name your boundaries perfectly and beautifully, and they sound awesome, but still abandon them when holding them costs you approval or comfort or connection, because you're not then putting those ideas, those things into practice, right? And this is why insight alone doesn't change our lives. It does explain our patterns, but integration rewires those patterns. And rewiring does not happen through explanation. It happens through habits and repetition and regulation and using not the little man, but the conscious choice in the moments when you're tested.
Yep.
And it's not a dramatic thing. Integration is not a dramatic thing. Like I said, it can be often boring and repetitive and just annoying. It doesn't announce itself through these ahas. It looks like a pause where there used to be a reaction, though, or a different choice where there used to be a habit or a reaction, or practicing breath so often that you can regulate with your breath whenever, no matter what's happening, right?
That was one thing that really perplexed me, because I understood the concept when you do deep breathing, it calms the nervous system. And it's like, I remember the first 6 months of you teaching me breathing, and I did it daily. And I'm like, this shit's not working. I am not feeling regulated right now, but I had to train my body with it. I had to cultivate, and I had to teach my mind to calm down in those moments.
Well, because you were, and this beautifully brings us into the next segment of the show, because you were retraining a very stubborn gatekeeper, weren't you?
Yep.
The guard to all this was very stubborn, as it is with most of us. I don't know anyone who picked up a concept and just, miraculously found integration and insight, right? Because most of us...
Have you met our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? No.
I have not met him in person. I hear he was a really great guy, though. I would have loved to met him.
No, you're absolutely right. The nervous system. My God. It is something that is so under-talked about because it is at the root of everything. Yeah. It is where your patterns live. It is where your triggers live. It is where your trauma lives. It is...
Yeah, it mirrors our electric bodies, our energy bodies that surround us. It mirrors that, right? You can't just fix this without fixing this. You can't just fix this without fixing this. Well, and let me rephrase. We don't fix anything. We're not broken. We just have to relearn. Right? We have to remember and relearn. So, but yeah, you can't. People will say, "I know better, but I still do it." Well, this isn't a lack of intelligence or sincerity or spiritual depth. It's part biology and part metaphysics. Right?
It's programmed into you.
It's just what it is. And by the way, because it connects to our larger energy body, what kind of soils this one leaks in. But if this isn't, but when you clean this one, what was it? What would you call it? Hygiene, right? You called it.
Oh yeah, emotional hygiene or
emotional. Yeah, yeah. You said hygiene for the nervous system.
Nervous system.
When you perform that, it also starts to clean this one too. They're mirrors, and we.
You'll be amazed how far that reaches to. Your entire life will change if you just start doing some emotional hygiene.
Yeah, right. The body always remembers.
Body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score, right?
One thing I got to bring up while we're talking about this, we talked about how 5% of the mind is conscious, 95% of our thoughts are actually unconscious. Well, I personally believe that 5% of consciousness is right here. This is all of it. But that 95%, that voice in our heads, is this. We just don't realize it because it translates to thoughts. It is our mind trying to translate what our bodies are telling us.
Yeah, but I would also, and this is a rabbit hole that we're not going to go down today, but because we don't have 6 hours to spend. But I would say that everything is energy, even our thoughts, and that we pull our thoughts not from our brain, but from the field around us. And if that field is dirty, it's going to pull in, right? Again, it all mirrors each other. But everything's energy. If you look at it from a purely an energetic point of view, then it makes absolute perfect sense that these things, when the energy is not aligned, then these are the kind of things that we see. And we have to align not just the physical antenna for energy, but the energy that comes and goes too. This is why healing on a holistic level is so important. We have to, if we are going to heal, we must heal physically. We must heal mentally. We must heal our emotional states, and we must bring our soul into alignment with the rest. And if you can't do all of that, it's difficult to truly heal that way.
And I think
which way is the best way? I'm not going to comment. right? There's lots of ways. Because, you know, I don't argue about that stuff. There are several ways to address these different misalignments within us. But I will say, no matter how you find that way to realign, you have to realign everything. That's how we heal.
You know, one important side note to doing this kind of work, integrating our understanding. I think one of the things that had me so stuck when I started gaining insight was I wasn't living in a safe environment. I was in a relationship that was abusive emotionally, psychologically. It was a very hostile environment. And I was not able to have the chance to allow myself to feel safe, to begin to build these practices. So look at, if you're trying to heal and you're struggling doing this integration work, what are you constantly surrounding yourself with? Do you have friends that demean you? Do you have a workplace that makes you feel attacked or not enough? Are you in a relationship that is constantly abusive? You know, I used to think abuse was only physical. I used to think when it came to psychological abuse, it was just when they were extremely hateful. But there's gaslighting, there's manipulation, there is degradation. There are all these things that flare up, and we normalize it when we're in these situations. So if you're struggling to integrate and you know that integration is what you need, look at these environments you put yourself in and ask if you feel safe.
Yeah. But this, to kind of piggyback off that, this again is why alignment with truth is important, because we could be perfectly safe but never think that we are. We could be actually perfectly safe but never feel like we are. So again, we have to work to align with reality, with what's actually true. So, and because not everything that we fear is actually going to hurt, is not actually going to happen. We do trick ourselves with the what ifs and the just in cases, right? So, but this is why insight alone increases our frustration, because we gain the awareness and we expect change to happen, and it feels like it did, but then these old patterns resurface because our body has not been retrained to experience safety in a real sense. Your nervous system does not care about your explanations. It does not. Your nervous system does not care, your body does not care that you read a book that sold 1 million copies. It does not care, I promise you.
It does not know the difference between good and bad, right and wrong.
Exactly. And this doesn't invalidate any of this. And it doesn't invalidate you from on a spiritual level either. This grounds it. You have to be aligned. You know, we don't bypass the body on the path of Ashla. We do not. It is important. It's an important part, as all of them.
Necessary,
right?
Yeah.
And a lot of self-help I'll see that only point out, like, this one's more important than this. This will follow this. That's not always the case. I see the ones I don't like is when you always see these people, change your mind and the rest will follow. That's not been my experience.
Yeah, no.
Not been my experience. You change the mind while changing the body, while aligning the soul, while mastering your emotions. That brings things to bear. That brings things into a better place. But we are all about the whole being. I'm not interested in just focusing on simply the mind and then just saying that it's going to heal everything else, or just aligning the spirit and it will take care of everything else, because, well, it just doesn't. That's not how human beings work. There are bridges to spiritual, to intellectual. We have to remember they're bridges to things that we have to walk across. One isn't better than the other. They're all necessary. But if you don't allow yourself to embody the insight that you've gained, you get trapped. You get trapped by this between knowledge and reaction, and there's no bridge there. You have to work to align and build those bridges, because these things will tell you what to realize, but not how to do it, not how to practice.
No.
So.
Well, and that's one of the reasons it's so important to have a mentor or coach, and a lot of the reasons why these books don't have these answers. Every one of our stories are different. We are like snowflakes, and every one of us is very different, especially how we became to who we are, which is why a coach or a mentor is so important, because they can show you, help learn about you, who you are, and dig into your history, into your situations, into how you survived your own life.
Right. So what are some signs that we're stuck in insight and where we need to move to integration?
You know, when you can explain your trauma better than you can handle the situations you go through. So a good example of this is, like, for instance, I realized I had the freeze response and that I don't do good in conflict. And my first example was a work review where I did not perform well that year. It was also the year I lost my significant other and went through all that crap. So, understandable. I didn't think it was going to be a great review. When they started going into those derogatory marks,
Right.
that freeze response kicked right on. And again, it's like, I don't think it will ever fully go away.
Right.
But it was that wake-up call of just how much work was needing to be done.
Yeah.
Again, I was in the backseat watching a car crash happen, and I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another example would be, you can explain your wounds more clearly than you can tolerate closeness, for example, if you have those kind of issues, right? If you can understand why intimacy feels threatening but still shut down or push away when it comes up, intimacy is a good thing. It's good for us. Closeness is good for us. Then we probably haven't crossed over into embodiment. Another one that I see a lot, and we never name names because there's so many names I would have to name. No, I'm just kidding. But kind of a theme I see in these kind of circles we talk about, right?
No.
If you talk about healing more than you practice it, right? We see
a lot of preachers, not a lot of practicers, doers.
Right? Yeah, not a lot of doers.
Welcome to social media of healing.
Exactly. Yeah, for real. The healers of TikTok type thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. It'd be like, you follow a page where the guy or the girl gives you tons of good expert financial advice, yet they're broke as a joke. Right? But you don't ever see that. Reflection is important. Language matters. Words have power, right? Yep. But transformation happens in repetition again, not in the articulation. You must walk the walk. And because really at the end of the day, and this is for everyone, healing is not proven by how we can describe or how well we describe it. It's revealed by what you can stay present with.
I think another great example here is, man, you feel above your triggers until they show up. And I know so many people that, they have that big game. They feel like they've conquered everything. And again, that was me when I first started this. Like, I understand it all. I'm just waiting for the right time.
Yeah, yeah. That almost crosses into the whole spiritual ego territory, right?
Yeah.
Where we transcend ego, but then we just get on a different
level of ego.
Yeah. I'm above all that. I was totally guilty of that. And at times I find myself still there, right? Where I have to remember, it's not integration this way. It's not ascension above anyone else. It's just a different level, still here, right?
Yeah.
But you feel yourself, and you said, like, it just, everything collapses under pressure. And you can feel regulated, you feel wise. I'm so wise and I'm so centered, right? Until something pokes the hole, the wound, and then that reaction returns with a vengeance, with force. This doesn't mean your insight was false. It just means you are still working on the integration part of it. We just did a show on self-trust. Another one is where we confuse that self-awareness for self-trust, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, I think a lot of people don't even realize what self-trust is in the beginning. We have certain areas we trust ourselves. I'm going to pay the bills.
You know all about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the biggest signs I think I realized when I was going through it, the hard realization, when I was going through my big attachment crisis I had, was there's no way I'm over this if I'm still researching this all the fucking time. And I keep diving into this. I keep having to make sense of things and find the new angles. It's like, am I actually healed? And it's this constant drive to dissect ourselves, our understanding, and it leads to this perpetual cycle of awareness without action.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not a sign of your failure. It just means you filled your cup. You filled your cup. It's time to pour. Right?
Yep. And hey, if you've been researching the same thing for 3 years, that's just the path you had before you. There's nothing wrong with it. But true healing, true integration is the step beyond that. Few steps beyond that.
Yeah. It's, again, goes back to what I said at the beginning of this episode. I gave you a map and I walked you to the trailhead. Integration is where you gotta go. Go. Walk it. And you can walk slow. You can walk step by step. I don't care if it takes you 30 years. Just walk it, though. Walk steps.
So how do we move from knowing to becoming?
By preparing. By understanding that this is not a dramatic thing. It's slow. It's not glamorous at all. It doesn't come knocking at the door with all these grand revelations. Integration doesn't. And this is where most of us kind of fall off. Not because we can't do the work, but because the work doesn't look like what we expected it to be. We
thought it was going to be some superhero movie.
Because you feel like that when you finally fill your cup with the insight, you feel empowered. You do. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's just that's only half the battle, because this again requires repetition. It doesn't require any more revelation. You've already got all the information you need. It requires repetition and action and patience and practice. The same thing, practice over and over again. The same trigger that we discovered, that we are now aware of, we meet that with a slightly different response each time until we integrate it, right? Till we meet it where it is and integrate it into our being. So that's the first step, is being prepared for what you're gonna face. It's gonna suck and it's gonna be boring and it's gonna be all that, but it's very important.
Again, as we have this awareness of what we need to change, to be realistic with ourselves and not be like, okay, now that I know how Captain America came to be, I am now Captain America. You can be like, okay, maybe I got to hit the gym consistently for the next 5 to 10 years before I'm at a good body build, So it's like you got to understand what would be the next best step for me to take in my healing journey in these situations. Again, I liked your example of how you feel your partner pull away and you go to chase after him. All right, what's the next best step? It's being able to express your emotions. Just say, hey, I'm feeling triggered right now. Can you work with me in understanding or give me a timeline of when I can get my closure? It's fine.
To give them space, right? We have to be prepared. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so necessary for us to understand what that looks like, because too often we like to be a little too advantageous with what we're going to look like with this newfound superpower we found.
Yep. And another thing is you have to be prepared to practice in real moments when the things get rough, when the pressure gets turned up and the stress gets turned up. That's your time to shine. That's your time to practice, right? You don't need more insight. You need more practical experience. That's how we create wisdom. Knowledge, action, practical experience creates what? Wisdom, right? Nobody gets wise by sitting around reading books. They get knowledgeable. They get sharp, smart. But smart is a whole different thing than wise, right? So
there is nothing I have learned to love more than triggers. As much as I don't feel that in the moment when they are triggered, I have come to realize triggers are the beautiful insight moments where I can understand myself better and learn to take better action. Learn to love your triggers.
They're messengers. And, they're just telling you, man, hey, this might be dangerous. Watch out. But you have to find, and this is another part of integration, you have to learn to discern what is real danger and what is not. That's where we start integrating too, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I learned, was fascinated by, is I realized a lot of my triggers, a lot of the moments I was triggered, there was no real danger. Again, work review and freeze responses kicking on. My job wasn't in danger. My character wasn't being called into question. It was a simple review, and often when we're triggered, we tend to either go into our extremes and take the situation to the extreme when it's really not as bad as we're making it out to be.
Yeah. Healing is like, healing is like really following a recipe, and your results may vary depending on how much of this and how much of that and a dash of that and a dash of this you put in there. It's better in the long run if you add equal amounts of insight and embodiment, because you can't practice something you don't know clearly, right? That's a pretty obvious thing. So
practice, practice, practice
every day.
Do you have any final thoughts you want to give our listeners before we close out this episode?
Yeah, I just want to remind you guys, look, insight is valuable. It's important. Awareness is equally as important. But understanding alone will not change your life. So here is my invitation, my call of action to you this week. Choose one reoccurring moment, something that you are aware of, something that you have studied, something that you are ready to take action on. Not a dramatic one. Don't ever start at the biggest thing you can find, because you'll have plenty of time to practice and plenty of things to practice with, right? A familiar one, a conversation or a trigger or reaction that you know that you do, something you know well, something you know intimately that's driving you crazy. You know about it, but you haven't embodied it yet. The next time it shows up, do one thing differently, just one thing differently. That could be pausing before speaking, or hanging on for just a few seconds longer, right? Staying there, staying present just a few seconds longer. Or regulate your breath if you haven't done that. Stand your ground, hold your boundary for 10 more seconds than you were able to before. Choose the response you already know that's aligned, though. Something you know better about. When we know better, we have to do better. But in order to do better, we have to practice. And don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it as soon as it's over with. Don't explain it. Just practice it. Just practice. This integration happens in these lived moments, not mental ones. So you don't need more insight. You need more embodiment. You have to walk the path. Once you discover it, you must walk it. You must live that truth. So that's what I have for that. That's what I want to end with today.
Beautiful. For our affirmations today, I honor my awareness, but I commit to embody change. I measure my healing by how I respond, not what I understand. I allow discomfort to teach me what insight cannot. I am patient with the pace of real integration. I choose practices that change my life, not just my language. For our journaling prompts, where in my life do I understand my patterns but still repeat them under stress? How do I know when I am regulated versus when I am intellectualizing my emotions? And what would integration look like in one specific trigger I face regularly? Embrace uncertainty. Embrace discomfort. Discomfort is your friend. And one of my favorite phrases of last year, the magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding. And there is so much truth to that. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you think could benefit from it. Like, share, subscribe. Check us out on all the different socials we're on: TikTok, YouTube, Spotify. And also, check out the best website ever, newashla.com. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem.